51 Texas Democrats have left the state, preventing the Texas House of Representatives from having a quorum, which stops Republicans from being able to pass the racist gerrymandered maps they presented late last week. This is critically important because in order to vote on these maps, the House has to be in session, but there has to be a quorum. The Republicans control the legislature, control the House, more than 20 votes. So 51 Democrats had to leave the state, meaning they don't have the jurisdiction. Understand what happens in Texas. The law allows for the governor to send Texas state troopers to literally, not to use arrest, but let's say bring a legislator back to the state capitol in order for them to be in session. So by leaving the state, Texas no longer has any jurisdiction to be able to arrest a lawmaker to come back and be present in the state capitol. That's why they're in Chicago. Earlier today, a number of them, yesterday and today, they were in New York State meeting with Governor Kathy Hochul. Yesterday, Governor Jay Pritzker of Illinois, who's actually helping fund them being there. A private plane was sent for them from Texas to fly to Illinois. They're putting them up there because there are obviously significant costs to house and feed 51 people. And you don't know how long they're going to be there. Now, here's the deal. The special session in Texas which the governor calls for. It's a 30-day special session. It expires August 19th, and the governor can't immediately call another special session. So that's likely what he is going to do. Now, somebody asked the question, how long must Democrats hold out? December. So let me explain the politics here. There's a deadline in December to file to run for office in 2026. So you must file by a certain date in December. Control room, find the date for me and get it to me, please. So if that's the case, then what's going to happen is you're then going to see these members. You're going to see these members file. So they have to fight. They have to fight Texas. Through December. They got to stop the Republicans from passing this map. That means that if the session ends August 19th, the governor calls for a 30-day session, then that's going to begin on a certain day. Then they can't have a quorum for 30 days. So let's say that's August 20th through September. That session ends. They got to hold out September to October. They got to hold out October to November. Then they got to hold out through December to keep the House from being able to vote on these maps. Now, Supreme Court has a precedent in that they don't like to rule on cases where essentially maps are locked in. So let me explain what that means. What that means is they believe that you have to have sufficient time for the voters to decide who they want to vote for. So Republicans want to pass the maps before December so those maps take effect. Lawsuits are filed. They know there are hearings. The lawsuits will not be determined. It's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. It's not going to be determined for a year, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. Do y'all know right now, lawsuits were filed against the 2021 maps. That is still going on right now in 2024. So the lawsuits from the 2021 maps are still taking place right now. So the Supreme Court freezes maps in place. And so what the Supreme Court will say is, we will leave, even though they may, because it happened in Alabama and Louisiana, even though the Supreme Court declared the maps to be unconstitutional, they were frozen in place until arguments could be heard and the cases could be fully adjudicated. So Republicans have been elected in the past. This is like in the last 4 to 6 years in maps that were declared unconstitutional, but the Supreme Court froze them in place. That's why we're where we are right now. Back to my panel. Omekongo, Larry, Liambi, I'm going to go to you. These are the things that people need to understand, the nuances of what's going on here. And so, J.B. Pritzker is the richest governor in the country. He's worth more than $1 billion. Democrats, we pulled the Texas Tribune article up last week. They were like, hey, we have to fund this. Like, people don't understand. And you got to keep 51 out of the state. So, Niambi, so what they're going to be doing is looking at your numbers and saying, okay, how many people who can go home for a week or come back? It's going to be all of that. It's going to be a lot of planning around scheduling. But the only power that Texas Democrats have to stop these racist gerrymandered maps from becoming law is to do what they are doing.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things you said, Roland, is this is going to have to be a game of wits, because on the numbers, Republicans have it, right? And so it's about logistics, like you said, negotiating who can go home and when, but for how long. But we have to also remember there are going to be fines imposed on those same legislators for all the days that they're missing. I think Abbott said something like $500 a day. So this is going to be costly in more ways than one. Whether he does that, whether they meet those obligations there are another thing. But I think, as you noted, this is a long game. And so there's going to have to be a lot of coordination, a lot of funding for these folks while they stay out of the state. And we have to also remember people have families, right? People have kids, people have parents that they're caregiving for. They have clients, right? Some of these members are attorneys. So they have other people they're also obligated to. So this is not a small thing that they're doing. It is going to be a real sacrifice. And it's going to require a lot of support, not just from their local constituents, but also the constituents of the local jurisdictions where they're going to be fleeing to.
Understand here, okay, when we talk about a quorum, there are 150 seats in the Texas House, Larry. Democrats have 62 of those seats. And so in order for them to have a quorum, that's why 51 can't show up. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, and as you know, my colleague noted, it's a matter of not only sacrifice, but how long can they hold out? This is going to be a tremendous coordinated effort. As you mentioned, Roland, your 30-day session, the governor's call on that. We're going to have individuals fall, some of the individuals that stay behind, where they fly out. So it'll have to be really important in terms of how they coordinate activities to make sure that they can't vote on this unfair map. The other thing is, Roland, is how do you want to remember historically? We talk a lot about those fighting in the civil rights movement, but there are a lot of people behind that you don't know about that make tremendous sacrifices. So this is an opportunity to stay steadfast and make sure that we have a fair map and they don't provide Trump with the votes that he needs.
This is a piece from the Texas Tribune that says denying quorum has been a Texas political strategy since 1870. And while the Democrats could technically derail the GOP's redistricting plan, such efforts have been largely symbolic and had limited success blocking past legislation. Now, according to this story right here, it says right here, June 1870, Omekongo, 13 Texas senators walked out of the Capitol to block a bill giving the governor wartime powers, depriving the upper chamber of the 2/3 quorum required for voting. Though the fleeing members were arrested and the bill eventually passed, the, quote, rump Senate incident established quorum breaking as a minority party tactic that has persisted in Texas politics ever since. Quorum breaks took place in 1979, 2003, 2021. And that's what's going on here. So you see right here, this expert says it's a messaging move. It's a last resort for Democrats who have run out of options legislatively and even legally. So you need 2/3 of the House members present in order to call it into session. Again, Democrats have 62 out of 150. By keeping 51 out, they don't meet the 2/3 quorum in the Texas House.
This is powerful. This is powerful, and they're standing on history. So I'm glad you shared that particular point about the history, because some people are going to call them rabble rousers. I'm sure some are calling them insurrectionists and all of this other type of stuff. They're standing right in line with what has happened in Texas for decades, going back to 1870. I think that's very powerful that you would share that. I think it's also important to, while the press conference was playing, Roland, I was scrolling through the other news networks. Nobody was playing this. Nobody was playing this live. Nobody was giving them the attention that they deserve. So that was another thing that I picked up on as they're fighting. And then the last thing I picked up on was I looked at the diversity of the people who were on that stage versus the Texas Republicans, right? You saw people part of the LGBT community, Latino, Black, white males, Black women, like run down the list, and it was all there. So that is a group of individuals that look like America, who are fighting for America. So when you were talking about they're going to be gone. Niambi is talking about the cost. I hope people like George Clooney and the like are going to be stepping up, to help these individuals. I'm thinking about that Texas Representative Ramos. She was talking about her daughter, and I was wondering, is her daughter with her? Did she have to leave her in Texas? These people are putting up a real sacrifice for this country, and they're standing in line of what they've been doing in Texas. What I appreciate what they're doing, as opposed to what Trump and his ilk are doing, everything these Texas Democrats are doing, it is legal. And all we've been asking for is for Democrats to use their power to legally fight back. And now that they're doing that, they deserve not only our praise, but our support and probably our financial support as they go through this as well.
Niambi, Larry made the point about coordination, and that is the case here. And I think that this is so unique and different. And this is real. This is a moment where it's going to be a significant sacrifice. It's going to be a significant cost. But let me reiterate this again for people who think that we're playing around here. Republicans are doing this because they are scared to death. They are scared to death of losing the House next year. They know that they lose the House next year, Democrats can stop any bill from passing that goes to Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. That's what's going on here. So what they're trying to do is, I need people to understand, they are trying. Mm-hmm. They are anticipating. They are looking at polling data right now. They know gas prices are up. Grocery prices are up. They know Donald Trump is down in a huge way on immigration. They know he was at 55% among folks 18-29 when he first was inaugurated. He's down some 27 points in that category. So they see the writing on the wall. We are seeing the impacts of tariffs. We were going to have economist Morgan Harper on, but we needed more time to explain economic stuff. We're going to have her back on tomorrow. They know what's going on. They are freaking out. So their deal is, hell, let's get 5 in Texas. Let's see how many we can pick up in Florida. Let's see how many we can pick up in Ohio. So they're hoping they can rig this map to pick up 10, 12 seats. And the reason there's a battle because Democrats could literally wipe them out in California. The problem is they got to get around that independent redistricting committee in California. There's an independent redistricting committee in New York State. Democrats, blue states are the largest states. So between California, Illinois, New York State, Virginia, Maryland, Democrats could conceivably pick up 20 seats. If they lose 5 in Texas, and let's say lose in Florida, a net gain of 10 seats. They only down 3. So they could actually win. That's why this battle is going on. It's about the House. The Senate, it's hard for them to win the Senate, but they have a better shot at winning the House because you've got 35 Republicans who are vulnerable, who are in districts that Biden won.
Absolutely. And I think, though, Texas is a real bellwether. This is a real test because so goes Texas, so goes a lot of the Republican Party. I mean, Texas is a big state with a lot of votes, but it also has a lot of young people and a lot of Black folks and a lot of Latino folks who are pissed off, and rightfully so, because these people have seen their children die yet again. We saw what happened with Uvalde, and we kind of moved on. And then we saw just what happened with these floods. So I think it is about, what can be happening in these blue states, right? But it is also about what are the future prognoses, right, of this party should Texas go down. And let's be clear, Abbott is thinking about his legacy too. And he's trying to think about how he can hitch his wagon to a star that looks like success. But as you know, Donald Trump is failing in so many areas. He has not kept a promise. Or at least not kept it the way that people wanted him to, but he's also not changed people's lives in any appreciable way. I think many people will say their life is worse now than it was 9 months ago. And not only that, when you look at a place like Texas, what's happening with the energy costs, with the grid there, whether it was the snowstorm where people lost power or, again, with these floods and these natural disasters that are only going to keep happening. I mean, people are really hurting and somebody has to pay. And unfortunately, it's on Republicans' watch. And they know that. And their time is ticking, even in a place like Texas. It's just a matter of this is going to happen faster or slower. And they are trying to really stave off the inevitable because you got a lot of young, very restless people in that state. And if you look to places like Maryland and other Democratic states, I mean, they have to protect themselves. I mean, this administration is downright vengeful in going after those places. So it's not just about depriving Republicans of seats. It's also about how can we inoculate ourselves as much as possible from this administration.
But the young people in the state got to vote. 2022, yeah. Larry, when Beto O'Rourke, former congressman, ran against Greg Abbott for governor, 75% of young voters in Texas under the age of 30 did not vote. Texas has the largest black voting population in the country, not hitting the numbers. And this is the thing we've got to understand here. This is why Republicans are scared. Go to my iPad, Antoine. House Republicans in competitive districts who voted for Trump's budget bill. You see this: Alaska, Colorado, Kentucky, Missouri, Nebraska. Don Bacon right there represents Omaha, Nebraska. He's retiring. New Jersey, Tom Keene Jr. Mike Lawler, competitive district there in New York. Andy Ogles in Tennessee. Monica De La Cruz in Texas. You have Michigan, 2 seats in Virginia. 2 in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is critical because you now have a Democratic-controlled state Supreme Court, and they've put back on the ballot. They've now made it lawful to have ballot drop boxes and things along those lines. They also outlawed partisan gerrymandering there in Wisconsin. 3 in Arizona, 3 in Colorado, 3 in Florida, 4 in Iowa. 3 in Iowa, 3 in Ohio. Then you see 4 there in Pennsylvania. And so that's what we are seeing. Republicans desperate want to gerrymander Pennsylvania because this is what they're basing, Larry. They're saying, well, Trump won these states. Well, that means nothing. People have to understand congressional districts, there are 435 in the country. They represent some 800,000 people. It has nothing to do about Trump winning a state. That means nothing. Hell, in North Carolina, Trump won North Carolina, but Democrats won the governor's mansion, lieutenant governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General. They won the state school superintendent and a Supreme Court seat. Republicans won the state auditor. So that means nothing. Yeah. Who gives a damn if Trump won the state? That's not how congressional elections are. But this is about them. Those are 35 vulnerable people. That's why they're trying to steal these 5 seats with this racist map.
Yes, trying to create a permanent majority, and you can't let that happen. Roland, I want to go to something you highlighted about young people and certain demographics. I think there are 2 challenges: misinformation and voter suppression. But the bottom line is, if the Democrats can win on issues like we're talking about what's happening in Texas to make sure we prevent some of this gerrymandering, then none of this will matter. We've already seen some of the implications in terms of some of the student loan issues like Biden and people have to pay. Now back to the SAVE program is eliminated. But it's really important that not only in Texas, but what's happening is going to happen in Florida and some of these other states, other red states, as they try to peel away some more of these congressional districts, Democrats have to have a plan. You need to have money and consistent support. That's the only way we can deal with this tidal wave as relates to gerrymandering. Otherwise, we're going to be dealing with some of these same issues. The country is on the verge of a recession that's going to impact a number of working class and underserved individuals throughout the country. So this is the first step.
I understand, Congo, I understand the points that Larry just made there And I agree, voter suppression, those things. But here I think is, again, the fundamental problem in Texas, and that we also see in other places. We see this for Democrats in Louisiana. We see this because we saw it in Georgia. It's an unorganized state. There are 254 counties in Texas. Democrats only have county offices in 81 of Texas' 254 counties. So the issue that you have is you do not have a sustained organizing apparatus in Texas that is 365 days, 7 days a week. Beto O'Rourke was putting that together. He traveled all across the state. He visited all 254 counties. But what happens when the election is over? And so what should be happening right now, whether it's called nonpartisan groups, nonprofits, or whatever, while this battle is happening, you can't just hope people turn out. The state has to be organized and mobilized.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an all hands on deck approach. And we can't just leave these Democrats out there to dry, almost like the way we treat, like, when elections come, oh, our guy in, see you in 2 years, see you in 4 years. Like, we can't have this mentality, oh, they're just going to hold out to December. It's all going to be fine. Republicans never quit. Every single day they're fighting to move the needle just a little bit. And so if you're going to have all of those districts that don't have representation right now, you've put out the word. You've put out the call for people to get out there. And every time you have people like, Cliff Albright, I mean, there are people like him who have the blueprint for what needs to be done and how it can be done, right? In terms of their organizations. If people don't understand that this has to be step by step, district by district, we're going to lose. Everything is going to be temporary. Things are going to look good for the cameras here and there, but people have to be involved in this fight at every level. When I brought up like George Clooney and others who can help, these guys financially, I was just using that as an example that these celebrities who talked a lot during the last election need to be involved in the game. The youth people that you talked about, the youth that you talk about, with everything that's happening in Texas, from women's rights to the job opportunities to what's going to be happening with this bill, there is no reason for young people to not be engaged in this fight. Everybody's talking about the young guy at James Tallarico, in Texas, who's bringing youth along with him or whatever. If these young people are not going to get immobilized right now, not in the summer of 2026, then this is theirs to lose. This is their future. I mean, it's all of our futures, but it's primarily their future. And so if they're not going to see that through the inaction of the flood, do they want to be the next flood victim when people don't vote for a monitoring system? They have everything to lose in this system. And so if they don't get behind these Democrats as well and start waking up and do some of that work that needs to happen in some of these districts that you just talked about that have no representation, then I'm afraid that these Democrats who left Texas, it's going to be all in vain. And we can't let that happen, Roland.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.